The ballroom at the Regency Hotel is packed. 300 people. Executives, managers, department heads, rising stars, annual company celebration for Vanguard Dynamics, open bar, past appetizers, string quartet in the corner playing something expensive sounding. I'm standing beside my wife, Rebecca. She's in her element. VP of Strategic Partnerships. Rising star. The person everyone wants to talk to. I'm wearing the suit she picked out, the tie she approved, standing at the appropriate distance, close enough to signal coupled, but far enough not to interfere with her networking. This is my role at these events. Present but peripheral. Supportive but silent. The plus one who doesn't create friction. A group approaches. Senior executives I recognize from Rebecca's stories. Mark Chen, CFO. Jennifer Walsh, VP of Operations. David Sterling, Head of M&A. Rebecca, phenomenal work on the Apex deal. Mark raises his glass. Team effort, Rebecca says with practiced humility. Couldn't have done it without legal and finance support. Don't sell yourself short. You drove that negotiation. Jennifer turns to me. Brief acknowledgement, polite curiosity. And who's this? Rebecca glances at me. There's a split second, maybe half a second, where she could introduce me properly, my name, my background, what I actually do. Instead, she laughs. Light, dismissive, social lubrication. Oh, that's just Alex. He's basically Decor. Don't mind him. The group erupts. Genuine laughter. The kind that comes when someone says something that's funny because it's transgressive, because it breaks a social rule in a way that's entertaining rather than offensive. Mark nearly chokes on his drink. Decor, that's brutal. Jennifer wipes her eyes. Rebecca, you're terrible. David slaps my shoulder like we're old friends. Well, you're very nice, Decor. More laughter. Rebecca's smiling, pleased with the joke, pleased with the response, pleased with herself. I smile too. Polite, neutral, the smile I've perfected at 100 of these events. Happy to add to the ambiance, I say lightly. More laughter. The moment passes. The conversation moves on. They're discussing quarterly projections now, market opportunities, strategic initiatives. I stand there, silent, professional, Decor. But something has shifted. Some line has been crossed. Some truth has been revealed that can't be unrevealed. For years, I've supported Rebecca's career. Quietly, without fanfare. Without demanding recognition. I've been the logistics coordinator, the problem solver, the steady foundation she could build on. And in return, in front of her colleagues and superiors, she's declared that I'm decorative, ornamental, present but irrelevant. The party continues for another 3 hours. I stand beside Rebecca, listen to conversations, smile when appropriate, play the role she's assigned me. But I'm calculating, thinking, remembering something she doesn't know I know. At 11:47 p.m., we get in the car. Rebecca drives. She's had less to drink. She's energized, talking about connections she made, deals she positioned, strategic moves for next quarter. I listen, say the right things, ask the right questions. She doesn't mention the Decor comment. Doesn't apologize, doesn't acknowledge it at all. Because to her, it wasn't significant. Just a joke. Social currency. A way to signal belonging to the people who matter. We get home at 12:23 a.m. She's asleep by 12:45. I'm awake until 3 a.m., thinking about a contract I signed 18 months ago, a contract that seemed routine at the time, a favor for Rebecca's company during a complex deal, a contract where my name appears in the fine print, where my signature carries legal weight, where my approval is required for something that matters very much. At 8:47 a.m., my phone buzzes. Email notification from hrcompliance@vanguarddynamics.com. Subject: urgent clarification required. Priority: high. I open it. Read carefully. Mr. Morgan, during routine contract review for the Meridian acquisition, your name has been flagged as a signatory on document 47B3, Compliance and Equity Transfer Agreement, dated March 2023. We need to clarify your current role and authority regarding this agreement. Please contact this office at your earliest convenience. This matter is time sensitive. Best regards, Patricia Vance, Director. Legal compliance. I read it twice, then a third time. Then I set my phone down. Make coffee. Think about what happens next. Last night, I was Decor. This morning, I'm on a contract they can't proceed without. Interesting how quickly things change. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit hype to boost this episode. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from. I need to explain how we got here, how I became the person Rebecca could casually dismiss as decor in front of her entire professional circle. It started with a choice, my choice. 7 years ago, Rebecca and I were both climbing. She was in business development at a mid-sized consulting firm. I was a senior analyst at an equity fund, both working brutal hours, both ambitious, both exhausted. Then she got the offer from Vanguard Dynamics, VP track, strategic partnerships, real opportunity to build something, but it required relocation, long hours, total commitment. We had a conversation about what that would mean. I want to take it, she said, but I need to know you're okay with what it requires, the travel, the hours, the focus. I'm okay with it. You'd need to be flexible, available. I can't be worrying about household logistics while I'm in negotiations. I'll handle it. And your career? That was the question. Because my career at the fund was solid but not extraordinary. I was good at analysis, competent but not exceptional, not partner track, just a reliable mid-level contributor. I can transition to consulting, I said. Independent work, flexible hours. It'll give me time to manage things at home and still bring in income. You're sure? I'm sure. Your opportunity is bigger. Let's run with it. So we did. She took the job. We moved. She dove into the work. And I transitioned. Started consulting on financial analysis and equity structuring for small firms. Work I could do remotely. Work I could schedule around Rebecca's needs. The first year was good. She was thriving. I was supporting. We were a team. But somewhere in year 2, something shifted. Subtle at first. A pattern emerging. She stopped asking about my work. Stopped being curious about my projects. Stopped seeing my contributions as valuable. When people asked what I did, she'd say, "Oh, Alex does consulting, financial stuff, nothing too exciting." Nothing too exciting. As if 8 years of equity fund experience and active client relationships were decorative, incidental. By year 3, I'd become logistics, the person who handled Rebecca's travel arrangements, who made sure the house ran smoothly, who solved problems so she could focus on work. It wasn't resentment exactly. I'd chosen this, I'd agreed to support her career, and I was good at it. But I'd become invisible in the process, not just to her colleagues, to her. At company events, I was the spouse who stood quietly while she networked, who smiled politely while she told stories about deals and negotiations, who faded into the background because my presence didn't add value to her professional image. 18 months ago, she came home agitated. "We have a compliance issue on the Meridian deal. Legal is being impossible about signatory requirements." "What kind of issue?" "They need someone independent, not a Vanguard employee, to hold equity during the regulatory review period. Someone with financial credentials, someone they can verify as qualified. It's bureaucratic nonsense." "What do they need?" "A signature, documentation, someone willing to serve as a temporary equity trustee. It pays a small stipend, maybe $5,000, but it's tedious." "I can do it." She looked up, surprised. "Really?" "I have the credentials. I'm independent. I can handle bureaucratic tedium." "You'd be willing?" "Of course, if it helps the deal." She hugged me, grateful, relieved. "You're the best. This solves everything." The next week, I met with Vanguard's legal team, signed the documents, became the designated equity trustee for a portion of the Meridian acquisition, a compliance requirement to satisfy regulatory concerns about insider control during the review period. The role was administrative. Hold the documents, release them when specific conditions were met, verify that protocols were followed, but the signature mattered, legally, structurally. Without my approval, certain transfers couldn't proceed. I filed the documents, forgot about them, returned to being supportive background infrastructure, until last night, when Rebecca called me Decor, and this morning, when HR suddenly remembered I existed. Let me take you back to last night in more detail. Because the Decor comment wasn't isolated. It was part of a pattern I'd been ignoring. The event started at 7 p.m. Rebecca was ready by 6:15, hair perfect, dress expensive, confidence radiating. "Remember," she said in the car, "just stay close, but not too close. Smile, be friendly, but let me lead conversations. These are important people." "I know the drill." "I'm serious, Alex. Mark Chen will be there. Jennifer Walsh. The board members. I need to make the right impression." "You will." We arrived at 7:03. Rebecca immediately found her people. I followed at the appropriate distance. First conversation, Rebecca and 2 directors discussing the Apex deal she'd led. I stood nearby, nodded when appropriate. said nothing. Your husband's very quiet, one of them noted. Alex is a great listener, Rebecca said smoothly. Translation, he knows his place. Second conversation, Rebecca networking with a potential client. High-value target, important relationship. The client asked what I did. Rebecca answered before I could. Consulting, financial analysis. Very technical. You'd find it boring. I didn't correct her. Didn't mention the equity fund experience. Didn't disrupt her narrative. Third conversation. The one where she called me Decor. That one landed differently. Because it wasn't just dismissive, it was public. Deliberate. A signal to her colleagues that I was irrelevant. Present, but unimportant, and they'd laughed. Confirmed the hierarchy. Validated her framing. I'd smiled. Played along. Maintained the facade. But something broke. Some tolerance I'd been maintaining. Some willingness to accept invisibility as the price of supporting her ambition. After the Decor comment, I watched more carefully. Noticed things I'd been trained to ignore. How Rebecca positioned herself physically, always slightly ahead of me in group conversations, how she'd answer questions directed at me before I could respond, how she'd redirect attention away from me if someone showed actual interest. I was Decor, quite literally, present to complete her image, not valued for who I was or what I knew. At 9:15 p.m., I stepped away to the bathroom. When I returned, Rebecca was in animated conversation with Mark Chen and the CEO, Richard Donovan. And the Meridian integration is tracking ahead of schedule, Rebecca was saying. Regulatory approvals came through faster than expected. We're positioned to close next month. Meridian, the deal where I was the equity trustee. Richard nodded approvingly. Excellent work. That deal is critical to our Q3 targets. No complications? None. Legal has everything buttoned up. It's just final documentation at this point. I stood there, listening, wondering if she'd forgotten, or if she'd never fully understood what my role in that deal actually was. The conversation continued. They discussed timelines, market conditions, strategic implications. Not once did Rebecca mention that the deal couldn't close without a signature from her Decor husband. We left at 11:30. She was pleased. Great event. Made some important connections. Richard specifically mentioned my work on Meridian. That's huge. That's great. You were perfect tonight. Very low-key. That's exactly what I needed. Low-key. Decor. Invisible. Mission accomplished. We got home. She went straight to bed. Exhausted but satisfied. I stayed up. Pulled out the Meridian documents I'd filed 18 months ago. Read through them carefully. The agreement was clear. I held a 7% equity position in trust during the regulatory review period. My signature was required to release that equity for final transfer. Without it, the deal couldn't close. The conditions for release were specific: regulatory approval, board certification, legal verification, and, here's the interesting part, trustee confirmation that all parties had acted in accordance with the agreement's good faith provisions. Good faith. That was the key phrase. Discretionary, subjective, subject to my interpretation as the independent trustee. Had all parties acted in good faith? I thought about Rebecca calling me Decor, about being dismissed publicly, about being rendered invisible in service of her ambition. Was that good faith? I went to bed around 3 a.m. No decisions made. Just awareness settling into place. At 8:47 a.m., HR called. The Meridian acquisition is an $840 million deal. Vanguard Dynamics buying a smaller competitor to expand market share and acquire valuable IP in the healthcare technology space. The deal structure is complex. Multiple regulatory jurisdictions, US, EU, UK, antitrust concerns from 3 different agencies, equity transfers that require independent verification to avoid insider trading allegations and regulatory red flags. That's where I came in, 18 months ago. Let me explain exactly how this worked. Because the details matter. The structure is everything. When companies execute large acquisitions in regulated industries, they face a problem. How do you transfer equity during the review period without creating the appearance of insider control? How do you prove to regulators that the transaction is arm's length and fair? The solution is an independent equity trustee, a third party, not employed by either company, not invested in the outcome, with no conflicts of interest, who holds a portion of the equity in trust during the regulatory review. The trustee's job is simple in theory. Hold the documents, verify compliance, release the equity when conditions are met. It's administrative, procedural. Usually a formality, except when it's not. Vanguard's legal team came to Rebecca about the trustee requirement 18 months ago. They needed someone qualified, someone independent, someone trustworthy. We need an equity trustee for Meridian, she'd told me. Someone with financial credentials who's not a Vanguard employee. Legal is being particular about qualifications. What are the requirements? Financial analysis background, understanding of equity structures, clean record, independence, the usual compliance stuff. What does the role involve? Holding documents, signing off when conditions are met. It's mostly paperwork, $5,000 stipend, should take maybe 10 hours total. 10 hours, $5,000. Simple math. I can do that. Really? You'd be willing? Of course, if it helps your deal. She'd hugged me. You're saving us so much headache. Legal was worried about finding someone qualified who wasn't connected to the company. This solves everything. The following week, I met with Patricia Vance and 2 other Vanguard attorneys. Professional meeting, conference room, documents everywhere. They'd explain the structure. Vanguard was acquiring 100% of Meridian's equity for $840 million, but during the regulatory review period, estimated at 12 to 18 months, a portion of that equity needed to be held independently to satisfy SEC and FTC requirements. That portion was 7%, roughly $59 million worth of equity at acquisition price. I would hold that equity in trust, not own it, not control it, just hold it, keep the documents secure, verify that regulatory conditions were met, then release it for final transfer. The key requirement, Patricia explained, is the good faith certification. You need to verify that both parties, Vanguard and Meridian, acted appropriately throughout the transaction period. It's a standard provision to protect against fraud or misrepresentation. What constitutes good faith in this context? Standard legal interpretation. Did either party materially misrepresent their position? Did anyone engage in deception? Were all disclosures accurate? If everything was above board, you sign. If you have concerns, you flag them. Who do I flag them to? Me, as lead counsel. But honestly, it's unlikely to be an issue. Both companies are publicly traded with robust compliance. This is belt and suspenders from the regulators. I'd read through the trustee agreement carefully, all 47 pages. The legal language was dense but clear. My responsibilities: 1. Accept transfer of 7% Meridian equity into trust upon initial acquisition. 2. Hold equity documents in secure custody throughout regulatory review. 3. Monitor compliance with all regulatory requirements. 4. Verify completion of specified conditions. Regulatory approval from SEC, FTC, EU Commission, board certification from both companies, shareholder approval from both companies, legal verification of no material changes in financial status. 5. Certify good faith compliance by all parties. 6. Release equity for final transfer upon satisfaction of all conditions. The good faith clause was in Section 8, Paragraph 4. Trustees shall verify and certify in their professional judgment that all parties to this transaction have acted in good faith and in accordance with the spirit and intent of this agreement throughout the transaction period, from initial signing through final equity release. Professional judgment, spirit, and intent, throughout the transaction period. Those phrases gave me discretion, authority to interpret, power to evaluate not just legal compliance, but ethical conduct. The good faith clause is broader than usual, I'd noted during the signing meeting. Patricia nodded. The regulators wanted it. They're concerned about sweetheart deals and insider manipulation. The independent trustee certification adds a layer of protection. And I have full discretion in making that determination. Within reasonable professional standards, yes. You're not expected to be arbitrary or capricious, but you're also not a rubber stamp. Your professional judgment matters. I'd signed, became the official equity trustee, received my copies of all documents, filed them carefully at home in a secure folder. The $5,000 stipend arrived in my account 3 weeks later. I'd put it toward household expenses. Hadn't thought much about it. That was 18 months ago. Since then, I'd received periodic updates from Patricia's office. Regulatory approval status, timeline adjustments, nothing requiring action from me, just keeping the trustee informed. I'd filed the updates, stayed current. But I hadn't actively engaged. The deal was progressing smoothly. No red flags, no concerns, until last night. When Rebecca called me Decor, something clicked. Some awareness of the power dynamic I'd been ignoring. I went home after the company event and pulled out the trustee documents. Read through them again with fresh eyes. The good faith clause wasn't just about Vanguard and Meridian's conduct with each other, it said all parties. And I was a party. I'd been appointed to this role, given authority, asked to exercise professional judgment. Had I been treated in good faith? Had Rebecca, who'd recommended me for the role, treated me with the respect and honesty the agreement required? Had Vanguard, who'd appointed me as a fiduciary partner, valued my contribution appropriately? Or had they all treated me as a convenient formality, a warm body with the right credentials, someone they could use and then dismiss as Decor? The more I thought about it, the more I realized the trustee agreement gave me real power, structural power. The deal literally could not close without my signature, without my certification of good faith. And good faith was subjective, discretionary, based on my professional judgment about the spirit and intent of the agreement. Did publicly humiliating the trustee align with the spirit and intent of good faith dealing? I'd spent hours that night reading every document, every regulatory filing, every board minute, every piece of correspondence I'd received over 18 months. The business transaction was clean. Vanguard and Meridian had been transparent with each other. Financial disclosures were accurate. Regulatory compliance was thorough. No issues there. But the good faith clause wasn't limited to the business transaction. It said, throughout the transaction period. And during that period, I'd been invisible, taken for granted, dismissed as decorative. Was that good faith toward the trustee? Toward someone holding $59 million in equity based on their professional judgment? I didn't have to answer that question immediately. I had discretion, authority, time. And now, after the HR email, Vanguard was finally realizing what I'd always known. Decor doesn't decide. People do. And I was a person with signing authority on an $840 million deal. The email from HR arrived at 8:47 a.m. Rebecca was already gone. She left at 6:30 for an early meeting. I was alone with coffee and the sudden realization that people were asking questions. I called the number in the email signature. Patricia Vance answered on the second ring. "Mr. Morgan, thank you for calling back so quickly." The email said urgent. "Yes. We're conducting final review of the Meridian documentation, and your name appeared as equity trustee. We need to verify your current status and authority." "What specifically needs verification?" "Your role, your credentials, your current relationship to Vanguard. This is standard compliance, making sure all signatories are properly documented." I signed the trustee agreement 18 months ago. My credentials were verified at that time. Nothing has changed. "I understand. But we're in final closing preparation, and we need updated confirmation. Can you come to our offices today? Say 2 p.m.? "What's the rush?" Brief pause. "The Meridian deal closes in 3 weeks. We're finalizing documentation. Your signature is required. We'd like to ensure everything is in order." "I see. Is 2 p.m. acceptable?" I thought about it. About Rebecca at her early meeting, discussing the deal she'd told everyone was buttoned up, about her confidence that everything was proceeding smoothly. "I can do 3 p.m. Another pause. Slight tension. "We'd prefer earlier if possible." 3 p.m. works for me." "Very well. Conference room C. Ask for me at reception." She hung up. I sat there, coffee cooling, understanding exactly what was happening. Someone had finally read the documents carefully, had realized that the decorative husband had signing authority on an $840 million deal, and they were nervous. At 11:23 a.m., Rebecca texted, "Heard HR wants to meet with you about Meridian, just compliance stuff. Totally routine. Thanks for handling it." Totally routine. She had no idea. I responded, "No problem. Meeting at 3? At 2:47 p.m., I arrived at Vanguard headquarters, wore a suit, the one I usually saved for the rare client meeting, brought my copy of the trustee agreement and all supporting documents. Patricia Vance met me at reception, mid-40s, sharp, controlled smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Morgan, thank you for coming." She led me to a conference room, not conference room C, conference room A, the big one, floor-to-ceiling windows, table for 20, 6 people were waiting. Patricia, 2 other lawyers I didn't recognize, Mark Chen, the CFO, Jennifer Walsh, VP of Operations, and Rebecca. She looked surprised to see me in a suit, surprised that I'd brought documents, surprised that this wasn't the quick formality she'd expected. "Alex, hi. Thanks for coming in." Her voice was cheerful, professional. "This should be quick, just some paperwork." I nodded, sat. Patricia took the lead. "Mr. Morgan, we appreciate your service as equity trustee for the Meridian acquisition. We're in final preparation for closing and need your confirmation on a few items." "I'm listening." "First, can you confirm that you still hold the designated equity position in trust as outlined in the original agreement?" "I can confirm that." "Second, have there been any material changes to your credentials, financial status, or relationship to Vanguard Dynamics since you signed the agreement?" "No material changes." Good. Third, and this is the important one. Can you confirm that, based on your review, all parties have acted in accordance with the agreement's requirements, including the good faith provision? There it was, the question that mattered. Everyone was watching me, waiting for the automatic yes, the rubber stamp, the formality. I opened my folder, pulled out the trustee agreement, found the relevant section. The good faith provision states, trustee shall verify that all parties acted in good faith and in accordance with the spirit and intent of this agreement throughout the transaction period. Is that correct? Patricia nodded. That's correct. And I have discretion to interpret what constitutes good faith? Brief pause. Within reasonable professional standards, yes. I see. Silence. Mark Chen leaned forward. Is there a problem, Mr. Morgan? I haven't completed my review. Your review of what? Of whether all parties acted in good faith throughout the transaction period. Rebecca spoke up, casual, dismissive. Alex, we've been over all of this. Legal reviewed everything. There's no issue. Legal reviewed the business transaction. I'm reviewing the good faith provision. They're different things. Patricia's smile was gone. Mr. Morgan, what specifically concerns you? I'd like more time to review the materials before making a certification. How much time? 2 weeks. The room temperature dropped. Mark Chen's voice was tight. The deal closes in 3 weeks. We need documentation finalized. We can't wait 2 weeks for a routine confirmation. Then it's not routine. What? If it's routine, waiting 2 weeks shouldn't matter. If it's urgent, then my confirmation isn't routine. It's essential. Which is it? Jennifer Walsh spoke up. Measured. Careful. Mr. Morgan, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The good faith provision is standard language. No one has acted in bad faith. This is just procedural. Then you won't mind if I take the time to verify that procedurally. Rebecca was staring at me, confused, concerned. Alex, what are you doing? My job as trustee, reviewing the agreement, certifying compliance, taking it seriously. This is absurd. Mark stood up. We don't have time for... For what? For me to actually exercise the authority I was given? The discretion that's explicitly outlined in the agreement? Patricia held up a hand. Everyone, let's take a breath. Mr. Morgan, can we speak privately? I stood. Of course. We moved to a smaller conference room. Just Patricia and me. She sat across from me. Direct eye contact. Attorney to whatever I was. What's really happening here? Exactly what I said. I'm reviewing whether I can certify good faith. You've had 18 months to review. The transaction period covers 18 months. I'm reviewing the entire period. This is about last night. I didn't respond. She sighed. Rebecca mentioned you attended the company event, that there was some social awkwardness. She called me Decor, in front of her entire professional circle. He's basically Decor. Don't mind him. They laughed. She laughed. I stood there and absorbed it. I understand that was hurtful. It was revealing. It revealed how she actually sees me, how Vanguard sees me, how everyone in that room sees me, as decorative, irrelevant, present but unimportant. Personal feelings are separate from professional obligations. Are they? The good faith provision doesn't specify what I'm evaluating. It says all parties. I'm a party to this agreement. I was appointed trustee, and I've been treated with contempt by people who need my signature. You're going to tank an $800 million deal because your wife made an insensitive comment? I'm going to take 2 weeks to thoroughly review whether I can certify good faith. If you'd prefer someone who rubber stamps without thinking, you should have appointed someone else. She studied me. What do you want? 2 weeks. That's all I'm asking. The market conditions could shift. The regulatory windows could close. Timing is critical. Then perhaps people should have considered that before treating the trustee like furniture. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'll need to brief the executive team. This is going to create significant disruption. I understand. Can you commit to a final answer in 2 weeks? Not longer? Yes. And you'll actually review the materials? This isn't just a delay tactic? I'll review everything thoroughly. If I can certify good faith, I will. If I can't, I won't. She stood. I'll communicate this to the team. Expect pushback, expect pressure. Can you handle that? I've been invisible for 7 years. I can handle people finally seeing me. We returned to the main conference room. Everyone looked up expectantly. Patricia delivered the news. Mr. Morgan needs 2 weeks to complete his review of the good faith provision. The certification will be delayed accordingly. Chaos. Mark, that's unacceptable. Jennifer, the closing timeline. Rebecca, Alex, this is ridiculous. I stood, gathered my documents. I'll have an answer in 2 weeks. You can reach me at the email on file. I walked out, left them sitting there, confused, angry, finally understanding that Decor had decision-making authority. I drove home from Vanguard headquarters, made lunch, turkey sandwich, same as always, sat at my desk, worked on an actual client project, financial analysis for a startup considering Series A funding. Normal work, the work I'd been doing while being invisible. My phone started ringing at 1:47 p.m. Rebecca, I let it go to voicemail. It rang again at 1:52 p.m. Mark Chen, voicemail, 1:58 p.m. Patricia Vance, voicemail, 2:15 p.m. Unknown number, voicemail, 2:23 p.m. Jennifer Walsh, voicemail, 2:34 p.m. Another unknown number, voicemail. By 3 p.m., I had 14 missed calls and 7 voicemails. I turned my phone to silent, finished my client analysis, sent the report, billed my hours, did the work that actually paid my bills, the work Rebecca had dismissed as consulting and not too exciting. At 5 p.m., I finally listened to the voicemails. Rebecca, first message, 1:47 p.m. Alex, call me immediately. What the hell just happened? Patricia said you're refusing to sign, that you need 2 weeks. Call me, now. Rebecca, second message, 2:31. Alex, I know you're angry about last night, but this is insane. You can't seriously be holding up the Meridian deal over a stupid comment. People are panicking. Richard is furious. Call me. Rebecca, third message, 3:12 p.m. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? This is my career, Alex. My entire career. If this deal falls apart because of you, I'm done. Finished. Please call me. Mark Chen, 1:52 p.m. Mr. Morgan, this is Mark Chen, CFO at Vanguard Dynamics. We need to resolve this situation immediately. The Meridian closing timeline is critical. Please call my office at your earliest convenience. Professional, controlled, but the urgency was obvious. Patricia Vance, 1:58 p.m. Alex, I understand you're upset about the company event. I do, but we need to find a way to move forward. The deal can't wait 2 weeks. Can we talk? Find a compromise? Call me when you get this. Jennifer Walsh, 2:23 p.m. Hi, Alex. It's Jennifer Walsh. I'd like to speak with you about the review process you mentioned. I think there may be ways we can expedite this while still addressing your concerns. Would you be available for a call this afternoon? Unknown number 1, 2:15 p.m. Mr. Morgan, this is David Sterling from M&A. I'm calling about the Meridian documentation. I'd appreciate the opportunity to discuss the deal structure with you at your convenience. Unknown number 2, 2:34 p.m. Alex, Richard Donovan here. I understand there's been some confusion about the trustee certification. I'd like to meet with you personally to address any concerns. My assistant will reach out to schedule. Richard Donovan, the CEO, personally calling me. Yesterday, I was Decor. Today, the CEO was leaving me voicemails. I didn't call anyone back. Instead, I went for a run. Cleared my head, thought about what I was actually doing. Was I being petty, vindictive, using power I had just because I could? Or was I finally demanding the respect I'd always deserved? The answer mattered, because I'd committed to a thorough review. And if I was going to certify good faith, I needed to approach this with good faith myself. At 6:47 p.m., Rebecca came home. I was in the kitchen, cooking dinner. Pasta carbonara, her favorite. The recipe I'd perfected over years of being the one who handled domestic logistics. She dropped her bag by the door, stared at me, face red, eyes puffy from crying. What the hell are you doing? I kept stirring. Making dinner. You know what I mean. The Meridian deal. What are you doing? Reviewing the good faith provision, like I told Patricia. This is insane, Alex. Completely insane. You're sabotaging my deal, my career, everything I've worked for. Over what? Over a joke at a party. It wasn't a joke, Rebecca. It was how you actually see me. That's not... Yes, it is. You've spent 7 years turning me into background support, into logistics, into someone you can dismiss in public without consequence. Last night just made it explicit. You called me Decor in front of your entire professional circle. They laughed. You laughed. And I stood there absorbing it because that's what I've been trained to do. You chose this. You chose to support my career. You said you were okay with it. I chose to be your partner, not your furniture, not your decor, your partner. There's a difference. She sat down at the kitchen table, put her face in her hands. started crying. Real tears, not manipulation, actual distress. Please, Alex, please don't do this. This deal is everything. If it falls apart because of you, my career is over. Richard will never forgive me. The board will never trust me again. I'll be the VP who couldn't close Meridian because her husband tanked it. Then maybe you shouldn't have called me Decor in front of them. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. It was stupid, thoughtless. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. You meant it exactly. You needed to signal to those people that you're one of them, that you belong in their world. And the easiest way to do that was to diminish me, to make them laugh at my expense, to confirm that I'm irrelevant, that I'm just decor. That's not true. Then tell me, what do I do? What are my credentials? What did I do before we moved for your job? She hesitated, opened her mouth, closed it. You don't know, do you? You've forgotten, or you never really cared to remember. I know you did finance. I was a senior analyst at Blackstone Equity Partners for 8 years, the senior analyst Rebecca. I managed portfolios worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I had clients who trusted me with their wealth, high net worth individuals who relied on my judgment. I had a career that mattered, a reputation, respect, and I gave it all up to support yours. Not to become your decor, to support you as your partner. She was quiet, tears streaming down her face. I'm not sabotaging your deal, Rebecca. I'm doing exactly what I agreed to do 18 months ago. Serve as an independent trustee and certify that all parties acted in good faith throughout the transaction period. If you treated me with respect, basic human respect, this would be a formality. I'd sign without hesitation, but you didn't. So now I'm actually evaluating whether I can honestly certify good faith. What do you want? Money? A title? What would make you sign? I don't want money. I don't want a title. I want 2 weeks to think, to review, to decide if I can certify that all parties, including you, including Vanguard, acted in good faith toward me as the trustee. And then? And then I'll make a decision based on my review. Will you sign? I don't know yet. That's why I need 2 weeks. She started crying harder. You're destroying us. You're destroying everything we've built. No, you destroyed it. Last night, when you called me Decor, I'm just refusing to pretend it didn't happen. I finished making the pasta, plated it, set her portion in front of her. She didn't eat, just sat there crying. Then got up, went to the bedroom. I heard her on the phone, talking to someone, probably Patricia, maybe Mark, trying to fix this, trying to find a way around me. But there was no way around me. The power was structural, built into the contract they'd forgotten about until it mattered. I was the equity trustee. My signature was required. Without it, $59 million in equity couldn't be released. Without that release, the deal couldn't close, and I had discretion, professional judgment, authority to evaluate good faith. I ate dinner alone, cleaned up, went to my office, sat there thinking about power, about how we assume it works versus how it actually works. Most people think power is about titles, status, position in a hierarchy. The CEO has power because he's the CEO. The VP has power because she's a VP. The consultant has no power because he's just a consultant. But real power is structural. It's about dependencies, about who controls what other people need. For 7 years, I'd had no structural power in Rebecca's world. She had the title, the salary, the relationships, the visibility. I was support staff, logistics, background. But 18 months ago, that changed. I signed a document that gave me structural power, the authority to block an $840 million deal with a single withheld signature. Nobody noticed because they weren't looking. They saw what they expected to see: decorative husband, irrelevant spouse, someone who could be dismissed without consequence. They were wrong, and now they were scrambling to fix their mistake. I opened my email, started reading the documents Patricia had sent, not to delay, not to be petty, but to actually review. Because I'd committed to thoroughness, and I meant it. Opened my email. 53 unread messages, most from Vanguard addresses. I started reading. From David Sterling, M&A. Subject: Meridian Transaction Structure. Alex, I left you a voicemail earlier. I'd appreciate the opportunity to walk you through the complete Meridian transaction structure. I think it might help with your review. Would tomorrow morning work? Best, David. From Jennifer Walsh, VP Operations. Subject: Following up. Alex, I hope we can find a resolution that works for everyone. I want you to know that I personally apologize if anything at the company event made you uncomfortable. That wasn't appropriate. Would you be willing to meet? Best regards, Jennifer, from Mark Chen, CFO. Subject, urgent, timeline discussion. Mr. Morgan, we need to understand your review timeline and what materials you need. The closing deadline is fixed. We have regulatory windows and market conditions that won't wait. Please call me so we can discuss how to support your review while meeting our deadlines. Mark Chen, CFO. Vanguard Dynamics. From Richard Donovan, CEO. Subject, meeting request. Alex, I'd like to meet with you personally to discuss the Meridian certification. I understand there are concerns, and I want to address them directly. Would Thursday work? My office or anywhere convenient for you. Best, Richard. The shift in tone was remarkable. Yesterday, nobody knew my name. Today, the CEO was offering to meet me anywhere convenient. I didn't respond to any of them. And not yet. I'd said 2 weeks. I meant 2 weeks. But I did start reading the materials Patricia had sent. Hundreds of pages, contracts, regulatory filings, board minutes, financial projections. I read until midnight, then went to bed. Rebecca was already asleep, or pretending to be. Either way, we didn't talk. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 7:23 a.m. Patricia Vance. I answered. Good morning. Alex, thank you for picking up. I wanted to touch base about the review process. Have you had a chance to look at the materials I sent? I've started. Good. Is there anything else you need? Any documents we haven't provided? Not yet. I'll let you know if I identify gaps. Please do. We want to support your review in any way we can. Also, and I'm asking this genuinely, not as a tactic, can we move faster than 2 weeks? Even a few days would help with the closing timeline. I said 2 weeks. I meant 2 weeks. Silence on the line. Then, I understand. Can I ask what you're specifically evaluating? The good faith provision, whether all parties acted appropriately throughout the transaction period. Including how you were treated? Including that? That's an interesting interpretation of the provision. It's a valid interpretation. The language says all parties. I'm a party. I'm evaluating accordingly. Alex, I want to be direct with you. If you refuse to certify, there will be consequences. Legal consequences. You could be sued for breach of fiduciary duty, for acting in bad faith yourself. You could try, but I'd have a strong defense. I'm exercising legitimate discretion under an ambiguous contract provision. And discovery would be fascinating. Depositions where we discuss how Vanguard treats its partners and vendors, how executives create hostile environments, how the trustee was publicly humiliated while serving in a fiduciary role. That's not a trial you want. Another silence. Longer this time. You've thought about this. I have. This isn't impulsive. No, it's deliberate, thoughtful, based on careful reading of my obligations. Okay, 2 weeks. But please, Alex, really review. Don't just delay out of anger. I'm reviewing thoroughly, I promise. She hung up. The calls continued throughout the day. David Sterling, Jennifer Walsh, even board members I'd never met. Everyone wanted to talk. Everyone wanted to understand my concerns. Everyone wanted to fix this, because they'd finally realized Decor had signing authority, and signing authority meant power. I ate alone, cleaned up, went to my office. Tomorrow, the real pressure would start. The next morning, my inbox was full. From Richard Donovan, CEO. Subject, Meridian Review. Alex, I understand there are concerns about the Meridian documentation. I'd like to meet with you personally to discuss. Would tomorrow work? Best, Richard, from Mark Chen, CFO. Subject, urgent, trustee review. Mr. Morgan, we need to understand your timeline and requirements for completing the good faith review. Please call me at your earliest convenience. From Jennifer Walsh, VP Operations. Subject, following up. Alex, I hope we can find a resolution that works for everyone. Happy to discuss any concerns you have about the Meridian transaction. From Patricia Vance, Legal. Subject, review materials. Alex, attached are comprehensive materials related to the Meridian acquisition. Please let me know if you need any additional documentation for your review. The attachment was enormous, hundreds of pages. Contracts, regulatory filings, board minutes, financial statements. They were taking me seriously now. I forwarded all the emails to a separate folder, didn't respond. Instead, I actually began reviewing. Because I'd committed to a thorough evaluation, and I meant it. I spent the morning reading through the Meridian acquisition materials. The deal structure was solid. Both companies had been transparent. Regulatory approvals were legitimate. Financial projections were reasonable. From a business perspective, there were no issues. The deal was clean. But the good faith provision wasn't just about the business, it was about all parties, including me. Had I been treated in good faith by Vanguard, by Rebecca, I made notes, documented observations, built a framework for evaluation. At 2 p.m., Rebecca called. I answered. Have you looked at your email? I have. Richard wants to meet with you, the CEO, Alex. He never does this. Please take the meeting. Why? Because he's trying to fix this. Because he understands you're upset and wants to make it right. Does he understand why I'm upset? Pause. I told him about the Decor comment. He was horrified. He wants to apologize personally. Okay. Okay? You'll meet with him. I'll meet with him. Not because he's the CEO, because he's taking the situation seriously. Thank you. Thursday at 10 a.m., his office. I'll be there. She hung up, relief obvious in her voice. Over the next 2 days, the emails continued. People were careful, respectful, treating me like I mattered. David Sterling from M&A sent a detailed analysis of the deal structure, in case it's helpful for your review. Jennifer Walsh sent a personal note. I want to apologize if anything at the company event made you uncomfortable. That wasn't appropriate. Even Mark Chen, who'd been aggressive in the conference room, sent a conciliatory message. Happy to discuss any aspect of the deal you'd like to understand better. The shift was remarkable. 3 days ago, I was Decor. Now I was receiving personal emails from C-suite executives. Thursday morning, I arrived at Vanguard headquarters at 9:55 a.m. Wore the same suit. Brought my notes. Richard Donovan's assistant greeted me warmly. Mr. Morgan, please come in. Richard is ready for you. Richard's office was impressive. Corner office, 40th floor, art that probably cost more than my car. He stood when I entered, extended his hand. Alex, thank you for coming. We shook. I sat. I want to start by apologizing, he said. Rebecca told me what happened at the company event. What she said, how it landed, that was completely inappropriate. You deserved better. I appreciate that. I also want you to know, I didn't realize you were our equity trustee on Meridian until Patricia flagged it. If I had known, you would have been treated very differently at company events. You're not an employee. You're a fiduciary partner in one of our most important deals. That matters. It shouldn't matter. I should be treated with respect whether I'm important to your deals or not. He paused, nodded slowly. You're absolutely right. That's a fair criticism. I have a tendency to value people based on their utility. That's wrong. It's common. But yes, it's wrong. What can I do to make this right? You're already doing it, taking this seriously, acknowledging the problem, treating me like a person instead of furniture. Is that enough for you to complete the good faith review? I'm completing the review regardless. Whether I can certify depends on what I find. Fair enough. Can I ask what specifically you're evaluating? I pulled out my notes. The good faith provision requires me to verify that all parties acted appropriately throughout the transaction period. I'm reviewing 3 categories: business conduct, regulatory compliance, and interpersonal treatment. Interpersonal treatment? Whether parties treated each other, and me, with honesty and respect. Good faith isn't just legal, it's ethical. And you're concerned about how you were treated? I am, because for 18 months I've held signing authority on this deal. But nobody thought about that. Nobody considered that the person they dismissed as decorative might actually matter. That suggests a pattern of not seeing people clearly, which raises questions about judgment. Richard was quiet, thinking. Then, that's a perspective we haven't considered, and you're right. We've been operating with significant blind spots. I'm glad you see that. What would it take for you to feel comfortable certifying? Time, continued respect, evidence that this isn't just tactical, that you actually mean the changes you're making. How much time? 2 weeks, like I told Patricia. And if we demonstrate real change in that time, then I'll seriously consider certification. That's all I can ask. He stood, extended his hand again. Thank you for your honest feedback, and for actually caring about the good faith provision. Most people would just rubber stamp it. I'm not most people. Clearly. I left his office feeling something I hadn't felt at Vanguard before. Seen, heard, valued. Not because of a title, not because of status. Because I'd demanded it, and they'd finally listened. The next 10 days were strange. Rebecca was careful around me, respectful, like she was trying to prove something. She stopped dismissing my work, started asking about my clients, made space for me in conversations instead of talking over me. "I've been thinking about what you said," she told me one evening, "about not knowing your background, about taking you for granted. You're right. I've been so focused on my career that I stopped seeing you. That's not okay. I appreciate you acknowledging that. I want to do better, be better. Whatever happens with Meridian, I want us to be okay. So do I." Vanguard's behavior changed, too. More emails, more respect, more acknowledgement. Jennifer Walsh sent me research materials without me asking. David Sterling invited me to a strategy briefing. Your equity fund experience could be valuable. Even Mark Chen apologized for his aggressive tone in the conference room. The shift was real. Whether it was tactical or genuine, they were demonstrating changed behavior. On day 9, I met with Patricia Vance to review my findings. "I've completed my evaluation," I said. "And?" "The business transaction is clean. Both parties acted appropriately from a legal and regulatory perspective. No concerns there." "Good. And the interpersonal evaluation?" "Mixed. There were significant issues with how I was treated throughout the transaction period, but there's been meaningful improvement in the past week and a half." "Enough to certify good faith?" "I'm still deciding." "What would help you decide?" "Honesty. If this is just tactical, if everyone goes back to treating me like Decor once the deal closes, then I can't certify. But if this represents real change, then I can." "How do we prove it's real?" "Time, consistency, follow through on commitments." She nodded. "Fair enough. What's your timeline?" "I'll have a final answer by Monday." That's day 14. Exactly what I promised. I spent the weekend thinking, reviewing everything, considering what mattered. The deal itself was fine. The business was sound. The regulatory compliance was thorough. From a technical perspective, I could certify without issue. The question was whether I could certify good faith from people who'd treated me as invisible until they needed me, and whether Rebecca had actually changed or was just performing change until the crisis passed. Sunday evening, we had dinner. Just the two of us. Rebecca cooked, first time in months. "I don't know what you're going to decide tomorrow," she said, "but I want you to know, I'm sorry, really sorry. Not just about the Decor comment, about everything, about making you invisible, about taking you for granted, about forgetting that you're brilliant and capable and gave up a lot to support me. Thank you. Whatever you decide, I'll accept it. If you can't sign, I understand. If you can, I'm grateful. But either way, I'm committed to changing, to being a better partner, to seeing you." I looked at her, trying to determine if this was real. She held my gaze. "I mean it, Alex. I've been a terrible partner. You deserved better. You deserve better. And I'm going to do better." "Okay. Okay, you believe me? Or okay, you'll sign?" "Okay, I believe you're trying. The rest we'll figure out." Monday morning, I called Patricia Vance. "I've completed my review. And? I can certify good faith. With conditions." "What conditions?" "First, I want formal acknowledgement in the closing documents that my role as trustee was taken seriously and executed thoroughly, not as a formality." "Agreed." "Second, I want Vanguard to implement a policy review about how they treat non-employee partners and vendors. Make sure this pattern doesn't continue." "That's reasonable. I'll bring it to Richard." "Third, Rebecca and I need couples counseling. Vanguard's benefits should cover it since the issues arose from work dynamics." "I'll make sure that happens. Then I'll sign." "When can you come in?" "This afternoon, 2 p.m. I'll have everything ready. And Alex?" "Yes? Thank you for taking this seriously, for demanding better. We needed to hear it." At 2 p.m., I returned to Vanguard headquarters. Conference room A again. Same group minus the hostility. Patricia slid the certification across the table. I read it carefully. The language was updated to reflect my conditions. I signed, dated it, slid it back. "The Meridian deal can proceed." Relief flooded the room. Mark Chen exhaled audibly. Jennifer Walsh smiled. Richard Donovan, who joined for the signing, nodded approvingly. "Thank you, Alex," Richard said, "for your diligence and for holding us accountable." Rebecca squeezed my hand under the table. I'd signed, not because they'd pressured me, because they'd earned it, demonstrated change, shown respect. Decor doesn't decide. But people do, and I'd finally demanded to be seen as a person. 3 months after the signing, Vanguard closed the Meridian acquisition. Successful integration, strong market response, exactly the outcome they'd planned. I attended the celebration dinner as Rebecca's actual partner, not as Decor, as someone executives greeted by name, asked questions, valued. The shift was permanent, or at least sustainable. Richard Donovan pulled me aside during the dinner. "Alex, I want to thank you again. What you did, demanding respect, holding us accountable, it changed how we operate. We've implemented new policies about vendor and partner treatment. We're training executives on unconscious bias. It's making a difference." "I'm glad. And I want to offer you something, a consulting contract with Vanguard, equity analysis and due diligence on future acquisitions, fair market rate, real partnership, not decorative." "I'll think about it." "Please do. You have expertise we need, and more importantly, you have integrity. That's rare." I shook his hand, went back to the table where Rebecca was talking with colleagues. She introduced me properly. "This is my husband, Alex. He was the equity trustee on Meridian. He has an incredible background in equity fund management. Not decorative, not just anything. Accurate, respectful, real." After dinner in the car, Rebecca said, "You're considering Richard's offer?" "Maybe. It's interesting work. It would be good to have you around more, in professional settings, not as my plus one, as yourself. That's what I want." "I know. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." We drove in comfortable silence, the kind that comes when you've worked through something hard and come out better. I thought about the journey, from invisible to essential, from decor to decision maker. Not through loudness, not through aggression, just through holding the line, demanding respect. Using the power I already had but hadn't recognized. The contract had given me structural authority, but I'd given myself something more important, the willingness to use it, to say, I matter, my judgment matters, my presence matters, and to refuse to accept anything less.